daily deaths have not yet increased, that could be because of a time lag. Of course, this is not just the United States, but it's going up around the world. We see daily new cases increasing here and are at an all-time high. And daily deaths around the world are also at an all-time high. As an example, daily cases in the United Kingdom are quite elevated. And whereas before we did not see deaths increasing, we're starting to see daily death rates increase in the United Kingdom. In Italy, we are again seeing an increase in the daily new cases. And this is reminiscent of what we saw in March in northern Italy, where we were seeing an increase in daily deaths as well at this point. And this is all to say that, of course, there's a lot of bad news around the world regarding this virus. And of course, recently there's been some good news, and we're going to talk about vaccines. And a great website to follow this is RAPS, or Regulatory Affairs Professional Society, which has a great COVID-19 vaccine tracker. And for the next couple of videos, we're going to highlight different vaccines that are being developed around the world for COVID-19. In the next few months or even weeks, there's going to be vaccines that are going to be released, brought to market, and consumers are going to have to make a choice as to which vaccine they want to get. It's going to be really important to understand and know about those vaccines and their track records. So we're going to dig deep and look at these vaccines and compare them looking at various characteristics, safety data, and efficacy. And the first one that we're going to look at is the vaccine that is being put out by Pfizer and BioNTech. And you can see here on the COVID-19 vaccine tracker, there are a number of different vaccines that you can click on them, and there are links so that you can look at the different publications and be educated on these vaccines. So the first thing we're going to look at is the Pfizer-BioNTech one that is here, and let's get started. So the first thing that you've got to understand is the biochemistry of what's happening with an infection. Now, as we've talked about before, you have a cell, and on that cell is a ACE2 receptor. And then what you have is the virus. And on the virus, as you've heard by now, are spike proteins. And so what happens is the spike protein interacts with this ACE2 receptor, and the virus gets internalized in the cell, and it basically takes over the cell or hijacks the machinery of the cell. And so really, this interaction between the spike protein and this ACE2 receptor needs to be blocked if you want to prevent infection. And one of the ways of doing that traditionally is by injecting fragments of the protein into the body and have antibodies being made against these spike proteins, so that the virus is not allowed to bind this ACE2 receptor and you neutralize this infection. And that's generally how vaccines have worked in the past. And the way that this virus, SARS-CoV-2, how it does this is that there is this mRNA genome which is inside of the virus. And so when the virus binds with the cell internalizes the envelope, but it also internalizes the messenger RNA inside the cell. Now, if we were to blow this up and show you what happens inside, it would look something like this. Here's the cell with the nucleus. In the nucleus, you have DNA, and that DNA is converted into RNA. And these are made up of nucleotides. Well, that RNA is converted into messenger RNA, and it's exported out of the nucleus into the cytoplasm, where you then have something called messenger RNA, which is still in the same language as the DNA is. But now you've got mRNA. And mRNA is a very specific structure. It has something called a 5' cap. It has information, and then it has a non-transcribed region at the end with a poly-A tail. And this is what allows you to make proteins, because this messenger RNA is translated by something called ribosomes into protein. And it's this protein that can turn into just about any type of protein you want, depending on the instructions here in the mRNA. Now, as we talked about before, when SARS-CoV-2 infects the cells, it causes the machinery in the cell to make proteins for more viruses. And so it's making more spike proteins, it's making more proteins that go on its surface, it's making a whole bunch of other things that go into making more SARS-CoV-2 virus.
Vaccination begins next week. The UK will start its COVID-19 vaccination next week. The world's first mass vaccination against the disease is due to Pfizer and BioNTech. Their experimental vaccine received approval in the region. The British government said that the vaccine is safe after rigorous clinical trials and positive results. According to CNET, the first group getting the vaccine is composed of healthcare workers, care home residents, and older adults. Starting next week, if everything is in order, approximately 800,000 doses will be distributed to the group, while the majority of the UK population will receive the doses in 2021. The BNT162b2 COVID-19 vaccine uses the new mRNA technology. The analysis of the data from late-stage trials showed an efficacy rate of 95%. The vaccine also expressed an efficacy rate of more than 94% among adults aged 65 years and older. British Society for Immunology President Art Akbar said, "It is only 12 months since the first recorded case of COVID-19. To achieve this within this timescale is remarkable and the researchers should be applauded." The major drawback of this promising vaccine is storage. It demands ultra-cold storage to last for months. When scheduled for administration or transport, the doses require cold storage of -70 degrees Celsius. Thus, shipping the vaccine needs dry ice to keep the temperature stable. In real-world settings, the vaccine is likely susceptible or challenging in warm regions. While cities may have ultra-cold storage chains, rural areas are expected without such facilities. So, countries with warmer temperatures may have to get another vaccine brand. The European Medicines Agency, on the other hand, is not happy with the decision of the British government. The agency will meet on December 29 to review the data submitted by Pfizer. The US FDA will do the same on December 10. Science magazine reported that former EMA Director Guido Rassi connected the quick approval to Brexit. However, the UK's Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency head, June Rain, pinpointed existing rules. The UK could enforce temporary authorizations of experimental drugs and medical devices during emergencies. Regardless, UK's decision to deploy Pfizer's vaccine very soon may directly pressure the US FDA. Until now, there is no experimental vaccine with conditional approval in the US. But there are several candidates: AstraZeneca, Moderna, and Pfizer.